Hey everyone, Kathy the Vegan Prepper here, and today I'm organizing my spices. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do, vegan prepper. Do-do-do-do-do-do-do, vegan prepper. All right, so for years now, I have been purchasing my spices in bulk just because it's a huge cost savings doing it that way versus buying the little containers at the store. Obviously not in the initial investment, but over time, there's just no beating it. It's kind of insane when you sit and you crunch the numbers, just how much money you save by purchasing something in bulk instead. However, for also years now, my spices have been kind of an organizational nightmare. So pretty recently, I have hit on this system here, which was kind of like a gift to myself because it was not super cheap to find these things. And these have been fantastic. They fit in my space. It's the exact perfect thing that I have for my own space. And again, pretty much all this video is going to show you what I've done for my own space, but hopefully some of the concepts can help you no matter what your space looks like. And so I'm able to have everything that I need right here by the stove. And it's just fantastic. So these just fit perfectly. Like I said, they are pricey. I will link down below which ones I got, although they're way more expensive now than they were when I purchased them. But I really love having these right here. What makes this work though, is to make sure that I refill every single time one of these is empty. I refill it before I put the jar back. At least that is the way that it's supposed to be. But lately I've been finding myself not doing that just because of how torturous the situation is in the drawer where I have all of my larger bags of the spices that are meant to refill these. So that is really what this video is about. I figured out that this works really well. So now I need to figure out organizing the support system for this. Okay, so here is some of my situation over here with some of my bulk spices. And so it's just really difficult with all of the bags, especially the main thing started when I started getting some of my spices from Azure Standard because of the fact that Azure Standard doesn't have a zip top bag. So for the most part, the things that come from, say, Mountain Rose Herbs come in a little zip top bag. Azure Standard is not like that. So I'm having a lot of trouble with some of my herbs kind of spilling because I would try to open them and then like close them with a clothespin and then put them in the drawer. And then they would spill everywhere and it wasn't a very good solution. I've been racking my brain trying to figure out how am I going to store all of this stuff. I was thinking about purchasing a bunch more bags, but I realized that too is not going to keep it very organized. So I personally have settled on this solution here, purchasing these takeout containers, basically from Amazon. And so there's 24 of them in a pack. And I think it's pretty darn reasonable. They're dishwasher safe, they're freezer safe. So if this doesn't end up working out, I can still use them for storing things, in my freezer and whatnot. And so I would love to be able to use glass instead, but let me show you exactly where I am doing all of this so that you can understand why I chose not to go with glass. And so it's over here, the bottom drawer of my apothecary cabinet. This lives in my kitchen. I love this thing. It is just one of the best things I ever bought, ever. But this bottom drawer is where I have been keeping my bulk spices. And so these containers fit beautifully in the drawer, but this is an antique or it's vintage. I don't know which, but it's old. And the drawers are not the best at opening and shutting. The other thing is I have tried before to do glass jars and the weight of the glass jars is just too much. So all of my herbs, for the most part, are stored up here in glass jars. And so that's what I prefer, but it doesn't work in a situation where you are opening and closing a drawer because it's just too heavy on the drawer. So that is the real reason, the main reason I have decided to go with plastic, even though it's not my favorite. This is for my bulk spices. We go through them pretty quickly. They get refilled. I'm not looking to make them last, for a really long time at this point. So basically I'm going to be putting all of these spices into these containers, we'll see how many will fit into that drawer. What's kind of handy, again, about the little spice racks that I bought are they came with their stickers. And then the cool thing too is because I bought 2 of them, I have 2 sets of stickers. So I'm going to be able to use those stickers on the tops of these containers, and hopefully we'll end up with a solution that doesn't look like this inside of my drawer and doesn't look like everything spilling everywhere inside of my drawer. All right, so this is what I have so far. And one thing I would also like to note about these, so these are the 1 quart size. And it is kind of amazing just how many herbs. It's not true with super leafy herbs like thyme or basil or oregano or bay. But for things like this ground ginger or minced onion or lemon peel, it's kind of amazing how often 1 pound is pretty much exactly 1 quart, just as an FYI. Now, obviously some of these I have extra. So like cardamom was an exception. There's a tiny bit extra that did not fit in the 1 quart size. Obviously I have a ton of extra bay. Same thing with my basil and my thyme. I've got quite a lot of extra of those things. And so basically now what's going to happen, as strange as it may sound, is I'm going to end up with 3 areas for my spices. And truthfully, I did always have 3, but it was 2 active areas. And so there is already a place in my pantry shelf. So here's one of my pantry shelves. And so this spot right here, as well as this spot up here, I have extra spices that are not open so that they're not, adding to the chaos of that drawer. And so my plan now is basically to combine these 2 areas, but then also include spices that may be open, but are not, that don't fit in those quart jars. And so I'm thinking about putting these things into that tote right there, which is actually empty. I've just emptied that tote that used to hold all of my seeds. Now they're in those 2 things right there. So yeah, it's always kind of a very fluid work in progress, working on stocking and organizing. There's a whole like logistical side to it that I think not a lot of people really talk about. They talk about how important it is to stock, how important it is to get all your things on hand, but they don't really talk about like the actual system for how you do that. So obviously everybody's system is different depending on what they have. So again, for me, because I'm using that drawer, I wanted lighter containers. And so mason jars were not appropriate for me. However, if you have a storage system, maybe it's inside the cabinet, like a cabinet type thing like that, and you're not using drawers, maybe mason jars would be the best thing for you. So it just sort of changes from person to person. And I don't think any one person has the one perfect solution that works for absolutely everyone. But I like to sort of give a window into what I do to hopefully give help and ideas for anybody else who may, need some help getting some ideas. Oh my goodness. So here is the final result. And I am not sure that I could be more happy with this if it pulled Beauty and the Beast and it came to life and just started doing all of my cooking for me. I might not be any more pleased with it than I am right now. So I'm purposefully leaving a spot because I'm sure I'll think of something later that I really want here. But for the most part, this basically represents my most commonly used spices. And these are the ones that I want accessible all of the time. And so yeah, an unexpected benefit that I did not think of before I started this, but only just noticed it as I was putting things into the drawer, is how easily I'm going to be able to tell which ones I need to replace, which ones I need to buy. So the ones that are full are very clearly very full, and the ones that are not so full are very clearly. Now I can see really clearly. I'm looking at my camera. I'm not sure that you can see as clearly. Like I can still see the cumin seeds are pretty high up. The curry powder is very low. So in the lighting, like not through the camera, I can see what is really needing to be replaced and what is not. So the one thing I need to think of is a way to differentiate between which of these herbs have extras off in my tote probably that I'm going to do like as soon as I'm done filming this. And I'm thinking of just using like a dry erase marker and putting a little black dot maybe just like off to the side for any of the ones. That wouldn't be this one. It would be like this one. It would be my thyme. Any of the ones that I already have extras of so that I know not to purchase more. But there are certain ones like my mustard seed is pretty low. And I don't have any more of that. So that's one that I need to purchase. But anyway, working out a system to keep your spices rotating and organized and happy. Oh my gosh, I'm so happy. And yeah, that's beautiful. It doesn't weigh hardly anything. And it was infinitely better than this mess that I had before. So I'm very happy. Okay, final thoughts. I don't know if you noticed that I store quite a lot of whole spices. And so I do that because whole spices last longer than ground spices. And so it was relatively recently, like a year or so ago, I started transitioning to basically buying every single one of my spices in the whole form instead of the ground form. Although I do have some leftovers. For instance, I have coriander seed powder and I have whole coriander seed. And so I use both in recipes. I love using whole coriander in certain recipes, usually Indian recipes. And then coriander seed powder is one that gets used in recipes as well as say cumin seeds and cumin seed powder. However, I no longer purchase cumin powder and I've gotten through all that I had on hand before. And so while I have only one container of cumin seed in my little setup down here now in the quart-sized jar, I actually have 2 jars for cumin over in my small spice rack. And one is for whole cumin seed, one is for ground cumin seed powder. And I just make my own cumin seed powder with a little spice grinder. I grind cumin seeds into cumin seed powder and I put it over there and it gets used pretty quickly. And then I go to grind the next batch. Actually, it's kind of handy. A full jar of the whole cumin seed I dump in my spice grinder, grind it, and then put that now ground into the ground jar. And then I just refill the cumin seed with whole cumin seed. And that's how I do the black pepper as well. There's black peppercorns and ground black pepper. So there are several spices over there that I use now that I grind myself fresh, but I just grind that tiny bit at a time and things stay fresher longer. And also I'm not having to restock powdered spices and whole spices. Another note that I'd like to make kind of purely from a prepping standpoint is if you're getting organic spices, especially, a lot of these are plantable. So like you could go when it's the correct season and sow these in your yard and end up with cilantro. Same thing with celery seed and whatnot. You might not get like a perfect plant that's like perfectly acclimated to your area, but it is something to keep in mind that if you have whole seed spices, a lot of those are potentially plants that you could grow for yourself if you ever needed to. And I think that will be it as far as whole spices. One last note, I want to say that this does not represent every single bit of my spices. For one, I have say cloves that I use quite often, but even still they're so strong, I only use a few at a time. So I go through very few cloves. So this is like, for instance, only a 4-ounce package versus the whole pound. I don't purchase these as quickly as I purchase other spices. And so these are probably not going to end up in a quart-sized jar in my drawer of my most used spices. Allspice is another one. I still have a ton of allspice powder from, I bought it forever ago. It still smells great. I'm still using it. If I ever manage to actually get through that, I will start purchasing whole allspice to grind, but I don't know if that's going to happen anytime soon. So these are probably going to be living kind of in that tote where I keep my extra spices, and I'll just figure out some way of notating for myself which ones I have on hand. Probably like a spice inventory sheet, which I will put into the tote so that I know what I already have on hand. But yeah, I'm really excited about the progress that I've made. I am thrilled with this setup, and I'm still trying to figure out what that last jar is going to be, or that last container. It's going to be probably either like parsley or I don't know. So something else, but I don't know. I'm still thinking. So anyway, hopefully that was helpful to you at all. If you got anything out of that, I really appreciate it. I'm grateful. And just leave me a comment down below. Give me a like, give me a subscribe if you want more of this. And yeah, look forward to seeing you in the next one. As always, I hope the rest of your day is good and your life stays wonderful. Bye. Hey everyone, Kathy the Vegan Prepper here, and I'm organizing my spices.